something really weird that's happening in the American economy right now. Because on one hand, if you just glance at the headlines, everything looks great. The stock market's soaring, GDP is up, it all looks fantastic. But at the exact same time, there's this massive crisis in the job market.
So that's the big mystery we're going to try to unravel in this explainer. How on earth can both of these things be true? How can the economy on paper look so rosy, while the actual experience of trying to find a job is just awful?
I mean, this slide just lays out the contradiction perfectly, doesn't it? You've got the stock market chart going straight up to record highs, and then you have the hiring rate chart, which is just plummeting. They're going in completely opposite directions. It just doesn't feel like it should be possible.
And just to give you some perspective on how serious this is, the last time the hiring rate was this low for this long was 2008. Yeah, the absolute rock bottom of the global financial crisis. We're talking about that level of difficulty in finding a job. This quote just nails the feeling, right? For millions of people, this isn't some abstract number on a chart. It is a brutal, soul-crushing reality. You hear stories of people sending out hundreds of applications, people who are totally overqualified, and they're not even getting a single callback. It's tough out there. So what is going on? What's causing all this? Well, as it turns out, it's not just one thing. We kind of have to put on our detective hats here and investigate four main culprits that are all working together to create this mess. And here they are, our four main suspects. We've got tariffs, which ironically were supposed to help with jobs. We've got these stubbornly high interest rates, of course, the rise of AI, and a big recent wave of government layoffs. Now, each one of these is a problem by itself, but the real story is how they're all feeding off of each other. Okay, let's just break this down real quick. Tariffs made imported parts and materials way more expensive, and that actually forced some American factories to shut down. The government layoffs? They suddenly dumped over 250,000 skilled, experienced workers onto the job market, which just cranked up the competition for everyone else. And then the high interest rates. That one's pretty simple. It just makes it too expensive for companies to borrow the money they need to grow and hire new people. But here's where it gets really complicated. These things aren't just happening in parallel. No, they're tangled up together, creating this vicious cycle, a perfect storm that's basically put the entire labor market on ice. Just follow the dominoes here. It's a chain reaction. Step 1, the tariffs make a bunch of stuff more expensive. Step 2, that pushes up inflation across the board. Step 3, to fight that inflation, what does the Federal Reserve do? They have to keep interest rates high. And step 4, those are the exact same high rates that are strangling businesses and stopping them from hiring. It's a trap, and we're caught right in the middle of it. And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. Here's the chairman of the Fed, Jerome Powell, basically admitting it himself. He's saying their two main goals, fighting inflation and keeping employment strong, are pulling in opposite directions. And right now, it seems pretty clear which one is losing. Now, let's throw another big wrench into the works, AI. So in this environment where money is expensive because of high interest rates, companies are desperate to cut costs. So what do? Instead of hiring, say, a new college grad for an entry-level job, they might realize that a chatbot or some other AI tool can do a good chunk of that work for a fraction of the cost. So the AI isn't necessarily replacing a worker who's already there. It's replacing a job that was about to be created. So we have this really strange, deeply contradictory picture of a booming stock market right alongside a collapsing job market. It feels like it shouldn't be possible, but it turns out economists actually have a name for this phenomenon, and it's the key that unlocks this entire paradox. It's called a K-shaped economy, and this is a really big deal. See, normally, after a downturn, everything kind of recovers together. Stocks go up, jobs come back, wages rise. They all move in the same general direction. But in a K-shaped world, they split apart, and they split apart violently. And this visual of the letter K is just the perfect way to picture it. You've got the top arm of the K shooting upwards. That represents things like assets, the stock market, and the fortunes of the wealthiest people. And then you've got the bottom arm of the K, which is just plummeting downwards. That's the job market, hiring rates, and wages for a huge portion of the population. And we have hard evidence for this. Just look at consumer confidence. It used to be that pretty much everyone, rich or poor, felt roughly the same way about the economy's direction. But look at what's happened recently. The confidence of high-income earners has shot up, while for lower-income folks, it's cratered.
It forms that perfect, undeniable K-shape. And get this, even that booming stock market is a K-shape in disguise. The entire S&P 500 rally is basically being held up by just companies in the index. They're essentially flat. It's a tiny, tiny sliver of the economy that's doing unbelievably well, while pretty much everyone else is just trying to tread water. So, okay, what does this actually mean for you, for us? Because this is not just some abstract economic theory you can ignore. A frozen labor market is a crisis that, sooner or later, is going to affect everybody. And the source material we're looking at here really highlights how certain policies have had these deeply unintended consequences. Tariffs, which were supposed to bring manufacturing jobs back home, ended up raising costs so much that some factories just closed or moved. Similarly, the source analyzed economic studies on mass deportations, which had the stated goal of freeing up jobs for citizens.
But what those studies found is really crucial. There's this concept in economics called complementarity. It's the idea that different jobs rely on each other. You need electricians and plumbers and drywallers to build a house. And what they found was that for every 100 undocumented workers who were removed, about 12 American citizens actually ended up losing their jobs because the businesses they worked for had to scale back or shut down entirely. And this really gets to the heart of why this K-shaped problem is so dangerous and so deceptive. That incredible success happening at the very top of the K generates just enough good economic news to keep us from having a full-blown 2008-style meltdown. It keeps the whole system afloat. But in doing so, it masks the very real, very painful crisis that's happening for everyone on the bottom half of that K. And that brings the whole thing right back home, doesn't it? Because maybe you feel pretty secure right now. Maybe you feel like you're on that top arm of the K. But what happens when it's your turn to step into this job market? Because nobody is immune to this forever. You could get laid off, your company could restructure, your partner could get a job in another city and you have to move. You could be graduating from school full of hope. Sooner or later, almost everyone finds themselves having to face this market. And that really is the final crucial takeaway here. A K-shaped economy can create a false sense of security. It makes it seem like the problems are over there, happening to other people. But when the fundamental engine of the economy, the ability for people to find work and build a life, is breaking down for more and more of us, that's not a crisis for some. That's a crisis that will, eventually, become a crisis for all.